Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report and a company update from HelioStar Metals. Chatting with the president and CEO Charles Funk. Charles and I are going to be recapping the most recent news release from just yesterday, July 22nd, discussing the restart of mining at the San Agustin mine in Mexico. This all plays into the company's continued guidance and continued growth strategy of gold production in the near term and through the next couple years. So Charles, let's talk about what's going on here at San Agustin. Mining operations will restart in the second half of this year that we're already in. You're expecting production in Q4. Talk to us about what went on here. I know this was in the pipeline, but you received a permit, it seemed like. This won't cost much to build. What are the steps that need to be undertaken for you to generate some cash flow from this asset?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a very significant milestone for us as a company. To have that certainty of production. We've been producing gold from San Agustin, but from the leach pads, residual leaching each month, recovering a little less and a little less. Now we get to stack new material on, grow the mine life at least till the end of next year, and look for expansion beyond that. I think the keys for us is the 40 million of cash flow that comes from it. It's only just over 4 million in CapEx, and more importantly, keeping our promises. You never control permitting timelines. We guided to expecting it around the middle of the year, and we're very pleased to have delivered on that.
Okay, talk to us about this build because look, this is a small resource. You're expecting to produce about 45,000 ounces of gold. It's not going to cost you much. Within the recent report, it said CapEx of $4.2 million. You are saying that this should generate, yes, close to, I believe, $50 million in cash flow. Take us through what needs to happen, though, in terms of getting into production here and what the expansion potential is, because right now this is just over a year of mine life, I believe.
Correct. So, the interesting history of San Agustin mine is the pit's an L shape, which is a very unusual shape for a deposit. And the reason it's that is because the previous operators didn't have surface access to an area that we call the corner area. That's what we've now got permission to mine. And so we're going to lay the pit back into that corner. So our only cost, we've got to move a power line, a local power line to the plant, move some roads and some infrastructure, remove the vegetation, clear and stockpile the topsoil, and then we start mining. We anticipate that taking a few months. We'll start stacking ore on the leach pad early in Q4, and we should see that coming through for production in Q4. So it's a function of the timeline it took the previous operator to get the surface agreements for that area. And your question about then the future, you've followed that we've put, significant capital into Ana Paula. We've fundamentally turned around the Colorada over the last 6 months. We didn't spend any money at San Agustin, and we weren't going to until we had production confidence, until you could get permits. Now that they're coming down the pipe, and we've got both permission to lay back into the corner area, we also got a modification to allow us to lift our leach pad an extra 11 meters in height. That saved us about $5 million in preparing and lining an extension of the leach pad. So a couple of significant breakthroughs for us from a cost and production perspective. And that gives us the confidence to start reinvesting in San Agustin. We don't know if we can have the same success as La Colorada or not, but we laid out in the press release where we see oxide expansion. There's holes up to 18 meters at over 3 grams gold southwest of the corner area. So we think there is some reasonable potential to expand mine life. And then there's some really interesting sulfide targets as well. So we've got some sort of, get on base swings with the oxide growth, and then some home run swings, sort of free home run swings with the sulfide targets. We're going to invest the first significant capital into San Agustin since we bought it, and we're doing that on the confidence that we can turn, resource ounces into production ounces.
Explain a little bit more the difference between these oxide and sulfide targets, because that is laid out in the news release. You also lay out some past drill results, but where do you see the best opportunity to grow this resource, to increase production, or just increase the overall mine life?
Yeah, so San Agustin today is a heap leach operation, so we can access all oxide material and mine that should it be economic. So that's the obvious thing to drill first. if we were to have success in the sulfides, there's a very large sulfide footprint underneath the pit. It's multiple kilometers by multiple kilometers. It's not amenable to heap leach recovery. We've done some work on flotation. We probably need higher grades. And so it's a very similar system to some of the other deposits in that belt, including Penasquito and Camino Rojo. And they do have some quite high grades at depth. So we've got some really nice exploration targets, and I stress that they're exploration targets at this stage. So treat the oxide growth as trying to immediately expand the mine life, treat the sulfide growth as longer term, bigger picture upside. But it kind of speaks to our DNA as a company. We've tried to lock down these assets and make them perform well. Then we've focused on near-term production growth. And in the big picture, we'll always take exploration shots to see what the full potential could be.
So it sounds like, at least right now, get this into production, start cash flowing, then you'll look at drilling off these targets?
Yeah, so we're going to start the oxide drilling immediately. Give us a few weeks and we'll start there straight away. Once we finish the oxide drilling, we'll do some of the sulfide drilling. So it will be priority on production, but we love to drill as a company, so we've got the rigs organized pretty shortly.
Now, cash in the bank. Again, the CapEx estimated to be under $5 million. You can internally fund that, no problem, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've got about 30 million in the bank today, so we're in a very strong position. It's quite incredible what we've achieved this year, and I think now we're setting up for those next steps beyond where we've got to. We've got some really big deliverables coming. The first is that certainty of confidence. The read through here is just San Agustin alone should exceed our production in 2026 than what we're going to produce as a company in 2025. So that's a very favourable step forward, a de-risking step. We're a few weeks slower on the tech report than I would have liked to have been for the Colorada. That's probably the next meaningful piece of news to come for us. We have drill results where we've got the 2 rigs turning at Ana Paula. We've got a technical report coming in the second half of the year on Serra de Gaia, which I don't think we're getting any value for, which we think is our longer term growth after Ana Paula. We're a really catalyst-rich company over the next few months, and it's going to be fun to deliver those. And I think that's the next leg up in our share price when people see the amount of production that we can expand into and the amount of cash flow that we can make from that.
Charles, let's talk about the guidance then, because I have it in my notes of 30 to 40,000 ounces in 2025, that expanding in 2026, 2027, and then 2028, potentially that big step up with Ana Paula coming online. You've outlined that by 2028, potentially the company could be a 200,000 ounce a year producer. Walk us through not just this year, because we're at this 34 or 30 to 40,000 ounces, which I assume is on track, but the near-term expansion into next year.
So take this as a forward-looking statement, and we formally put out the 30 to 40,000 ounce of guidance for this year. I think we can do 50 to maybe as high as 70 if we get the Veta Madre permit, exactly the same permit that we just received. We would expect that late this year, very early next year. So lower end 50, possibly up to 70,000 ounces next year. And then, as you touched on, 2028 is that big step change, up to 150 to 200,000 ounces of annual production when Ana Paula comes online. And not just increases in production, but we also forecast that we should get coincident decreases in our all-in sustaining cost. It's expensive to stop and start on mines. It's expensive to carry the cost waiting for the gold to percolate through the leach pads and come out. So just operating steady state should have a cost benefit, as well as the economies of scale of us getting larger. So I think we're on that right trajectory, and to grow into that mid-tier, which is our goal, of increasing our production materially while also decreasing our costs while we do it. It's a pretty sweet profile should we be able to deliver it. And what we're attempting to pull off, and I think we're a very good chance of, is getting to those production steps with very little to no dilution. The amount of cash that we can put on the balance sheet from the Colorado and San Agustin is significant. We think that will fund the bulk, if not all, of our capital needs for Ana Paula. We're in quite a strong position with this gold price and this growth profile.
Charles, let's talk about permitting then, because boy, oh boy, permitting in Mexico. Everybody talks about it, especially all those focused on silver and silver stocks. Explain what this permit was that you just got. Is this a new permit? Is this an expansion on a permit? And how did the process go for you as a company?
Yeah, so we submitted our applications in Q4 last year. We needed an extension of our existing open pit, and there's a lot of nuances in permits. There's all different types of permits. The two big ones companies typically need is an environmental permit and a permission to clear land. So, there's a lot of detail that will bore a lot of people that I won't go into, but essentially treat this as an expansion of an existing open pit. We submitted the application, as I said, in Q4 last year. We've had really good communication with the permitting authorities. They've been really clear on what we needed to do and the timelines. We've been able to achieve those timelines. So I'm very pleased with the results that we're getting. I think it bodes well for people's confidence in assets and operations in Mexico. And I speak highly of the permitting authority under the Scheinbaum presidency has been I'd almost go as far as say, as a wonderful group to deal with. Been straightforward, transparent, and easy to deal with from a company perspective.
Okay, well, and it sounds like this permit came pretty much when you expected it or somewhat on time, and now you get to move forward with starting to mine this asset. Just remind everybody all the things to come. You already went through that in terms of the tech report and everything else that you're doing, but just summarize in order of what investors should be looking for news flow wise.
Yeah, so in the big picture, not so I don't just exactly repeat myself. We want to be a 150 to 200,000 ounce a year gold producer in 2028, and we think we can get there with very little to no equity dilution. That is a pretty unique value proposition because every company that is producing at that rate is worth, 5 or 6 times what we are at a minimum. So it implies a significant upside in our share price should we deliver. And so the thing to watch for is, are we generating cash? Obviously, today's news is a huge step forward to that with the 40 million in cash flow laid out at $3,000 gold in our most recent tech report for San Agustin. And then you get to layer on either increased certainty or growth. And to go through them again, today it's the confidence in the restart in San Agustin. Coming down the pipe, it is the technical report showing we think we can improve the economics at La Colorada. There's the resource growth and resource conversion with 2 rigs doing 15,000 meters at Paula. There's additional drilling now at La Colorada and San Agustin in the second half of the year. It keeps going. There's the tech report for Serra de Gaia. As I said, I don't think we're getting any value for that, and I think it's a very attractive growth project. The only reason I don't think we're getting value is we treat it as historic. The previous study, we had so much work on our plate, we just had to schedule things out, and it's nice to be completing that. And we might even have a few more surprises in the back half of the year. So I think we've got the key studies that demonstrate that the company should be worth more on a NAV basis. So if you do a discount to NAV, I think it can increase our share price. There's the quarterly production figures and cash flow that I think give confidence in our ability to operate. And then there's these lovely resource growth steps with the drill bit on top of that, where we are quite strongly positioned today.
All right, Charles, thank you very much for this update. You've made the transition from explorer into producer, but you still have all this other development ongoing because of all the assets you hold. So a lot for us to talk about, but right now we just wanted to focus on the San Agustin mine, the restart that is now going to be underway and should be in production by Q4 of this year. If any of you have any follow-up questions for Charles, please email me, fleck@kereport.com. I'll also post a link in the show notes to the company's website where you can read over this most recent news release. Charles, thank you very much for the update. I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much.